Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the weekly meeting at the United Lodge of Theosophists here in San Diego, but really everywhere and nowhere, as is Zoom is. And we have a few of us in locus here at the lodge, and we have quite a few of us out and about in virtual territory. And today we will be hearing from Dr. Patrick Horn on the theme of the Pilgrimage of Humanity. Then I'll just introduce Dr. Patrick Horn. He is a man that we met at the World's Parliament of Religions, and he'll tell you about that. But his presentation there was on something very, very intriguing when prophecies come true. And so we asked him if the prophecy could come true, that he would come speak for us. And he said yes, because prophecies come true sometimes. So he's an initiated member of the Vedanta Society. He has a sympathetic association with the Theosophical movement. His multiple academic degrees include liberal arts and science and graduate level study in literature, comparative religions, and psychology. He has an honorary doctorate in Divinitas, the highest in rank and prestige among scholars. And he is an alumni fellow of the Institute for Digital Civic Culture at the University of Southern California. He received training in spiritual direction from the Center for Ecumenical and Interreligious Engagement at Seattle University. And he presented recently at the Parliament of World's Religions in Chicago on the topic When Prophecies Come True. He will discuss the pilgrimage of humanity through cosmic evolution and the transmigration of the soul. So let me turn the meeting over to Patrick Horn.
Thank you. It's a lot to live up to. I am really grateful for the invitation, and I don't know how the meetings typically progress, but I will bring up my slideshow and improvise on the subject. My focus, before we begin, that sympathetic association with the Theosophical Society is because when I found the Vedanta Society in Hollywood, I became interested in the history of the neighborhood. And I, from a scholarly point of view, started tracing the Theosophical movement. And so my talk is going to be a comparative study in a way, because I have a perspective of having been initiated through the Vedanta Society, being a disciple through the lineage founded by Swami Vivekananda, and he crossed paths a number of times. The subject will be partly philosophical and partly historical, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation afterwards. I'll begin with a customary prayer, first in Sanskrit and then the translation. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejas Vina Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be nourished and protected. May we work together with great strength. May our study be fruitful and enlightening. Let there be no quarrels among us. Om, peace, peace, peace. So the subject is the pilgrimage of humanity. And this quote was provided. And they said, you can change it if you'd like. And I said, no, leave it exactly the way that it is. There's the Hermes trickster who is restating a ancient verse from the Rig Veda, Ekam Sat Vipra Pubuddha Vedanti. The truth is one, but sages call it by various names. And this is a key lesson in the spiritual quest. The truth is always the same. It doesn't change. That's what makes it the truth. But descriptions of the truth are various, and also not the truth itself. We need a description of the truth so that we can find our way to it. But the description is not the truth any more than the word agua or water is the drink that's going to quench my thirst. So this wonderful lesson here is the truth is one. People call it by different names, and we are seeking truth so that we can be free. And there we have the emblem for the Theosophical Society, which is quite symbolic. And I'm not going to dwell here for too long because it's so deep. But the motto, there is no religion higher than truth. This is the pilgrimage from ignorance and confusion to knowledge of the truth and freedom. That's the pilgrimage of humanity. And among the objectives of the Theosophical Society, as a reminder to myself and to others, is the group would form the nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity, an example radiating out and influencing and benefiting the whole world. And encouraging the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science. So that's why I'll bring Vedanta to bear in my training among the swamis and the monks. And I like that religion, philosophy, and science are studied together. Swami Vivekananda had the ideal of a universal religion that had science, philosophy, and poetry as the three main components. And so in my study of philosophy, in my study of theosophy, there are those three fundamental points that begin with everything in the universe. This is from Helena Blavatsky. Throughout all its kingdoms is conscious, endowed with a consciousness of its own kind and on its own plane of perception. As above, so it is below, as in heaven, so on earth. And man, the microcosm and miniature copy of the macrocosm, is living witness to this universal law and to the mode of its action. So this topic, the pilgrimage of humanity, I found an article in Hermes with the same title, and the pilgrimage is freedom from the entire process of becoming, reuniting with the absolute existence, which in Vedanta is called Brahman. And we have the principle of alternation here, which is another one of the fundamentals. You'll excuse me, I've got my notes spread out everywhere. So we have the absolute existence that projects through a perpetual cycle of renewal, a cosmic appearance and sentient living beings who are not separate, but essentially that absolute existence. Brahman, infinite, undivided, unchanging, transcendent, but also immanent, Satchitananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss. And in Vedanta, they teach us only Brahman is real, God is the only reality, and to know God and become established in the perception of God is the purpose of life. And that is the highest knowledge. The realization of that knowledge is the truth. When we realize that truth, we are free. Madame Blavatsky has underneath a paragraph called Esoteric Buddhism. She has this description of the emanations from the highest to the physical body and the earth. And this can be found on page 153 of The Secret Doctrine. It is very similar to the Samkhya system, which was studied by Pythagoras, came into the Alexandrian school, went into European Gnosticism, transmitted through the secret societies, entering into the American metaphysical tradition. And this word Purusha is the synonym for Atman in the Upanishads, which is in Madame Blavatsky's esoteric Buddhism as the causal state, the highest. And the lesson from the Upanishads is Atman is to Brahman as a drop of water is to the ocean, the same in kind, just different in scale. So here, a little recitation from my book. Brahman is the material and efficient cause of the physical universe, limited by the law of cause and effects. It moves from protoplasm to illumined masters like the Buddha or the Christ. Swami Vivekananda said, the whole of this life, which slowly manifests itself, evolves itself from the protoplasm to the perfected human being, the incarnation of God on earth. The whole of this series is but one life, and the whole of this manifestation must have been involved in that very protoplasm. This whole life, this very God on earth was involved in it and slowly came out, manifesting itself slowly, slowly, slowly. That's how Swami Vivekananda described the pilgrimage of humanity, from our absolute source to this human condition, and then the return. So in comparing the diagram that Madame Blavatsky gives in The Secret Doctrine with the Sankhya system, just wanted to say that in the Sankhya system, there are two main principles, Purusha or Atman in the Upanishadic language, the changeless witness, and Prakriti, the material phenomena subject to three conditions of creation, preservation, and destruction. The first manifestation of Prakriti is Mahat, or intelligence. It is sometimes translated as Buddhi, which in humanity is the discrimination or determinative function. There is no consciousness in it. Consciousness itself, Purusha or Atman, independent of mechanical processes, illumines the minds, the senses, and the objects of perception, like the sun is reflected in a jar of water. If the reflection of the sun in a jar of water wobbles, the sun itself does not wobble. It is a false attribution of ahamkara, or identity-making function, which Helena Blavatsky translated as will, which wrongly attaches to modifications of Prakriti or matter, rather than the immutable knower, the witness consciousness, Purusha or Atman. The reflected self is then bound to mental processes, bodily organs, physical conditions, and ruled by attraction and aversion to various objects and experiences. And so then we're on our pilgrimage through karma, which in the early Vedic literature meant only action. It came to later mean specifically ritual action. Then it took on a connotation of moral action, the law of cause and effect, the accumulation of merit, which could be transferred or eliminated, transferred by across lifetimes, or absorbed through the grace of a guru, something like that. It's a very subtle doctrine. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna that even teachers are confused. And in the Upanishads, Yajnavalkya, when he is asked about it, refuses to talk about karma publicly. He takes his student by the hand and they go away and privately talk about it, because he says on this topic, even the gods have confusion about it. Related to karma is dharma, and that is an interesting word that is related to our word religion, and to the Sanskrit word yoga. And the dharma is the various requirements because of being born as humans, being born in a particular station in life, having particular inclinations or tendencies. And the dharma in the Mahabharata is described as a dog, man's best friend, and Yudhisthira will not abandon dharma, and because of his loyalty to the dharma, gains entrance into heaven. Another aspect of the pilgrimage of humanity through various states. So the third fundamental idea that I learned about theosophy is the circle of necessity, and I've thought about this in a big way. The kalpa, which is when the absolute existence, through its projecting power of Maya, becomes the apparitional universe and goes through creation and preservation and destruction, bringing into being living forms like humanity, who goes through historical epochs and different ages, and also these souls transmigrating from lifetime to lifetime as we are overcoming our ignorance of our true nature, finding knowledge of our true identity, and realizing the unitary consciousness again, being liberated from that transmigration of the soul through all of those various lifetimes, and evolving as the absolute becomes the apparitional universe, galaxies, solar system, planets, up through the mineral life, up through the plant life, up through the animal life, becoming human. And in this human condition, having this unique opportunity to seek truth, to cultivate our Buddha nature, to become a bodhisattva, a divine entity, become a free soul. And so this is in a broad brush, this is the pilgrimage of humanity. And amongst these various cycles, we also have the rise and fall of nations. And about this, Helena Blavatsky said in a talk titled Mind and Nature, as the theosophist has no desire to play being a squirrel upon its revolving wheel, he must refuse to follow the lead of the materialists. He at any rate knows that the revolutions of the physical world are, according to the ancient doctrine, attended by like revolutions in the world of intellect, for the spiritual evolution in the universe proceeds in cycles like the physical one. Do we not see in history a regular alternation of ebb and flow in the tide of human progress? She also writes about distributive karma, which is the aggregate of individual karma, which becomes that of the nation. Swami Vivekananda said that every nation has a mission. Now, wrapped up in this idea of nation is the concept of the races that is described on page 200 of the Secret Doctrine. Now, I'm not going to go through all of that except to point out that we are in a unique time in human history, and to look at a little bit of the recent past, but not so recent that we can't have an objective view. But there is this idea that there have been these races that have come up through Lemuria, through Atlantis, that we are now in these cycles and of races and sub-races. Various tribes and ethnicities have come forward with their unique contributions to the evolution of the species, and that the purpose of the Theosophical Society was founded to help this further evolution of humanity, which they had calculated would occur in the near future in America, and especially in California. So some of that was described in my talk that I gave at the Parliament, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper here and focus on some of the history with Theosophists and what they did and how this got expressed, and where that might put us now, as well as how Swami Vivekananda interacted with all of that. Now, I think the key point to this next evolution of humanity is in this quote here from the Secret Doctrine about Maitreya, who is the Kalki avatar of the Brahmins, the last Messiah who will come at the culmination of the great cycle. And she writes about how we are never without teachers, masters of wisdom, guides who can show us the way, point the way to truth, give us paths, and that they appear regularly. And here she, in this big paragraph at the bottom, she says, if the present attempt in the form of our society succeeds better than its predecessors have done, then it will be in existence as an organized, living, and healthy body when the time comes for the effort of the 20th century. The general condition of men's minds and hearts will have been improved and purified by the spread of its teachings. And as I have said, their prejudices and dogmatic illusions will have been, to some extent at least, removed. And she describes the welcoming of a new torchbearer of truth, to whom such an opportunity is given, would accomplish much. And the last line there in that big paragraph, earth will be a heaven in the 21st century in comparison with what it is now. And so the Theosophical Society played a very important role following the Parliament of World's Religions in 1893, which was staged 130 years ago in Chicago at the Art Institute. The Theosophical Society sent delegations. Swami Vivekananda emerged as a star speaker. Annie Besant, who was a special delegate of the Theosophical Society, described Swami Vivekananda as a striking figure. Vice President William Judge was at the Parliament in 1893. They had a 2-day conference where they defined theosophy, gave a history of it, gave essential concepts, This is all available online for study. They talked about the intent of the Theosophical movement and how it would be organized with various organizations, but it was about the spreading of ideas more than the spread of institutions. There was plenty of institutions that spread, and it's not typically, as so far as I know from just reading the literature, it's not typically the attitude of the ULT to get involved in all in looking at all of those controversies and conflicts. And I'm going to look at the history without emphasizing that aspect of it too much, just to see how the movement took shape to about 100 years ago, when then it's no longer appropriate really to talk about the movement. It might be too close. So we can get up to about 1925 or so. And then at this Theosophical Conference at the Parliament of World's Religions in 1893, they talked about theosophy in its relationship to social problems and how theosophy and science were compatible. Now, after 1893, there was a lot of contention and conflict and fractures in the Theosophical movement. Different organizations came into being. In 1895, Swami Vivekananda gave 2 talks at the Aryan Hall of the New York office of the Theosophical Society, William Judge, as the chief there. And his first talk was on March 17th, what is Vedanta? The second talk, March 24th, what is yoga? Just to be clear, I'm sure many people know this, but maybe there are newcomers or watching this at a distance in a recording. Aryan took on a much different meaning in the 20th century. The meaning here meant noble, and the nobility of mind, the nobility of the soul, the dignity of human existence. So Swami Vivekananda's first talk, March 17th, 1895. What is Vedanta? Vedanta is a compound word. I don't know how Vivekananda's talk went. There's no recording of that particular talk. But Vedanta itself means the end of knowledge, or the goal of wisdom, finding the truth, realizing the truth, actually perceiving the truth itself, the ineffable truth, God, the divinity of our own soul. How to do that? March 24th, what is yoga? Again, there's no notes of what he talked about, but the definition that I give for yoga is the first real line in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is control of the activities of the mind. If we go back to that idea of the Sankhya philosophy, where the self-luminous pure consciousness is reflected through the mental apparatus, and the mind is waves, that yoga calms those waves so that then the pure reflection shines through perfectly. So controlling the activities of the mind, then the reflection of the self-luminous Brahman shows through. After he gave that talk in New York, those 2 talks in New York, there was some conflict between Swami Vivekananda and the Theosophical Society, because Leon Landberg, who had organized the 2 lectures there in the hall, was a part-time lecturer and active member, and he left the Theosophical Society to take initiation and become a Swami under Swami Vivekananda that summer. And so there was some human resource conflicts, and there was some harsh words that were spoken on both sides, but by 1896, all's well that ends well. Swami Vivekananda accepted an invitation to discuss bhakti or devotion at the Blavatsky Lodge in London. That's Annie Besant's house. Colonel Alcott was there. Again, there's no notes on what he discussed. It would probably be very much along the lines of his bhakti yoga lectures that were recorded. I give here the definition from Narada, from his Bhakti Sutra, Sattvasmim para prema rupa, which means bhakti is authentic love for this. See, Narada didn't want his teachings to be sectarian in any way. So for God, he uses the indefinite neuter pronoun this. So then it could be beneficial to every sect, every kind of devotional ideal, and recognizes the presence itself, the immanent consciousness, which is all pervading. Incidentally, Sri Ramakrishna, who is Swami Vivekananda's guru, was asked what his opinion of the Theosophists were. And what he said was, bhakti is the one thing needed, love for God. Do the Theosophists seek bhakti? And here at the Blavatsky Lodge in 1896, Swami Vivekananda gave that talk on bhakti to the Theosophists. And really the path of knowledge and the path of devotion, bhakti, they are really intertwined and are not different in the accomplishment, in reaching the goal itself. So love and truth are intimately related. So in 1897, the Theosophical movement leaves its organizational headquarters in New York and lays the cornerstone in San Diego. And I appreciate that this is the United Lodge of Theosophists in San Diego. When Swami Vivekananda passed on his work to Swami Abhedananda, he said to him that California would be a place where there would be a spiritual wave starting in San Diego and Los Angeles. From the California coast, it would inundate the whole world. And here, the cornerstone was laid for that movement through the Theosophical Society under the leadership of Catherine Kingley, the successor to William Judge. I love the architecture, which unfortunately almost all of it burned down in the 1940s. But you see here both of the gates entry into this landscaped space where they were growing citrus and avocados and trying to put their ideals into daily practice through the academy and through the temple there. The attitude among some Theosophists was that the movement was becoming very extravagant. And so Robert Crosby, who was a resident at Point Loma, founded the United Lodge of Theosophists to really focus on the teachings themselves and trying to realize the goal that the teachings are pointing to. So back to our quote from the beginning from Hermes and our line from the Rig Veda, Ekam Sat Vipra Prabhuda Vedanti, the truth is one, sages call it by various names. The teachings point the way, the path gives us a technique, and then we actually reach the truth and realize it and perceive it. And to do that is the main point. And with all of the ways that the theosophical movement was becoming extravagant in those times, the ULT emerged out of that. Now, just out of a sense of completeness and recognizing that there was talk at the original Parliament, looking at the history of theosophy, I'm going to take a look at how the theosophical movement expressed itself in various ways in Los Angeles up to about 1925, and then we'll fast forward to the implications for today in our pilgrimage through the rise and fall of nations. So Annie Besant wrote about the immediate future, which included catastrophic changes, swift communication technology, which would enable a universal religion or global Catholicism, the emergence of the world teacher, and a further development of humanity's spiritual nature. With this unique civilization emerging out of America and California being the foundation for 1,000 years golden age. A.P. Warrington was put in charge of the project in Los Angeles, which he described as a metropolis destined to birth a new race, requiring wise guidance and great wisdom. There must come a great world teacher, and theosophy will prepare minds of men for his message. The teacher will not be a god, he will be a man, but with wisdom and insight, he will teach a new understanding of life. And the first, there's many people who have claimed to be the world teacher. Swami Vivekananda was described as a world teacher. Krishnamurti was prepared to be a world teacher. Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard also made claims of being world teachers. The work in Hollywood for the emergence of a world teacher and the theosophical movement, preparing for that, the cornerstone was laid in 1912 for a new institute of study. Here's a picture from the cornerstone ceremony. And this was described while it was active as a city upon the hill. It was imagined as the home for the Christ of an Aquarian age. The buildings are all still there. And so when I was at the Vedanta Society, the tiny Taj Mahal, kind of out on the circumference, associated with Swami Prabhavananda and associated with Aldous Huxley and the writers, when I would go for a walk in the neighborhood and see these buildings, and I ask myself, what is happening here? What is this all about? And that's how I discovered theosophy and started to learn more about the history and the ideas and the interrelationship among all of the different characters. They built a mansion for the future Buddha, the 10th incarnation of Vishnu, who would be the Christ of the Aquarian age. But things became very controversial, and the whole project was subdivided and sold off, and there's still a lot of debate about it until this day. And as my final character, Alice Bailey lived in a tent at Crotona, and she described the character that they were seeking would appear in fulfillment of what Madame Blavatsky had first said in The Secret Doctrine. That character would appear before 2025. So if if Madame Blavatsky was saying the last quarter of the 20th century, we've got this 50-year window where the character would show up not as a god, but as an ordinary man who would be restating ancient wisdom teachings for the benefit of humanity. So 130 years later, we have the Parliament of World's Religions in Chicago, When Prophecies Come True, was one of my talks. I performed a song also, an original song. And my talk included some indigenous elders and interfaith leaders who were discussing the various prophecies from their various traditions that were being fulfilled in our times, the signs and the wonders during this time of many troubles that give us encouragement and hope and faith, and give us strength to put our own hands to the great work of bringing forward a more peaceful world, a world where people are able to develop their spiritual natures, to seek the truth, to be free. And so with that, may peace prevail on earth. And I think that's about 40 minutes or so. And I'll stop my screen share and we can have some discussion. Stop share. And I can see you all again. I wasn't able to see some of you. So my concluding remark would be that humanity is on a pilgrimage. It's on a pilgrimage from the absolute into many different kinds of forms, an apparent universe, a galaxy, a solar system, a planet coming up out of the elements through plants, through animals, through human, and then there a potentially divine soul manifesting our Buddha nature, becoming free souls, transmigrating across lifetimes until we're able to reach that goal. And our reunion with our original source and our ultimate being, which we're actually never separate from. And through this great migration, characters, nations, the rise and fall of the as people learn and grow through experience, and through that experience go on to higher levels of truth and freedom. Okay.
Thank you, Patrick. Wonderful hearing your voice. What a wonderful, optimistic and voice. Putting forth that there's meaning to life, and that it's this meaningful pilgrimage. I think I saw a hand up from Judy.
Yes, Patrick, thank you very much for a very comprehensive and inspiring talk. Jonathan and Helena Karakazi and I also got to speak at the recent World Parliament of Religions in Chicago, and I thought it was wonderful how we all learned from each other and came together. And I thought your talk was a very inspiring one on the idea of the Aquarian Age, movements such as Theosophy, Vedanta, others that are controversial like Scientology. But don't we have to say that the emphasis should not be on the personality of the leader of the last 25 years of each century? HPB is once quoted as saying to Annie Besant, "Child, you are as proud as Lucifer." And then, of course, Dr. Besant was very embarrassed when Krishnamurti renounced the Messiah title and said, "I'm a man looking for the truth." This was in the Tulip Garden in the Netherlands. And I know an elderly lady who's long since passed who heard him do this. And also, there's been a lot of problems with the idea of a personality, an individual male or female coming to be the leader. So don't we have to say that we now have to carry the ball? We have to discover that it's only what we can find in each of us that is going to be the truth. In other words, the voice of the silence is desire. It's not the voice, it's the light on the path. Desire only that which is within you. But we can't look outside ourselves and really say that here's the teacher again, we're going to be taught. We've been taught. We have the secret doctrine. We have these great teachings. We have to do it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with you, and I want to be clear that when I, from the point of view of a scholar, looking at it, poetry, looking at it from a little bit of a distance in history, but I tried to emphasize in the talk that the ULT was founded so that the personalities and the controversies wouldn't be emphasized, and it is merely supposed to inspire. What can a teacher do for us? Any teacher. It can only awaken the teacher that's already within us. And I love this character of Maitreya because in all of the ancient literature of the Buddhists in the Lotus Sutra or the Vimalakirti Sutra, he is a character that has this great potential, and he can serve as an inspiration. And so with Swami Vivekananda saying an ideal religion would be a combination of science, philosophy, and poetry, I look at it as poetry. And so far as a personality is concerned, in the Vimalakirti Sutra, there's a wonderful story of when Vimalakirti, the Buddha's great lay devotee, hears about Maitreya. He's sitting in a collegial atmosphere where he's giving discourse and surrounded by mythologists and astronomers and actors and writers, and they're treating him like he's a god, and he's indulging in it. He's very proud and so on. And Vimalakirti comes into the assembly, and Maitreya is frightened because he knows that Vimalakirti has realized the truth, and his words take Maitreya out of his vanity and glamour. He says to Maitreya, okay, so if there's a prophecy of your supreme enlightenment, then because the nature of existence knows no differentiation or distinction, then likewise there is a prophecy of supreme enlightenment for all living beings. So this character coming around in recurring cycles isn't anything special. It's something that each of us has an opportunity at all times. Every time is a great moment to find God and to become established in a perception and to be a free soul, to be a bodhisattva. These are, I find it entertaining that the attempt to create an estate for the Christ as of the Aquarian age, the future Buddha, of all places, it's Hollywood. And so there's an element of imagination, and it is it's a good interpretation of it. I mean, there's a lot of bad interpretations of it that can be found on the internet, but a good interpretation of it is that this is just a reminder. Just a reminder of taking responsibility for our own work of realizing that within ourselves. And it's a very creative way of expressing it. And so so yes, I agree with you. It's focusing on the principles and the practices and the processes and actually having the realization for ourselves is more important than depending on anybody outside of ourselves. They can only ever point the way. But the finger pointing at the moon has nothing to do with the moon other than showing the way. We have to see the moon, and nobody can see it for us except for ourselves. And so that's, I hope, that rings resonance so that you feel like we're in agreement there.
Well, it's a great answer, and I think Ramakrishna would agree with that as well. Even though he's considered an avatar, I think we have to find that element in all of us. So thank you. Good answer.
I have a question, Patrick.
Yes.
Okay, this thing about the pilgrimage of humanity, it seems like, and you said it's from the source to the source, essentially, and you can repair how I said that afterwards. But something that we're all on the same path and the same journey from the divine or from the one, and then into all this manifestation, complexity, diversity, so forth, and then somehow circling back around. So that's a very emanationist approach, or something like that. You know, instead of a creationist approach. But or maybe it's a different way of thinking of creation, perhaps, I don't know. But this thing that we're all doing something together. Do you see? And Vivekananda was really, as far as I can tell, very much onto the brotherhood of humanity. How do you see this fact that instead of just being created by the same being, they were all emanating from the same source, but all involved in this collective process together, that somehow organically bespeaks of this idea of brotherhood? Sorry, I couldn't answer the question any better than
that. We're on this pilgrimage from our divine source into Maya. All of these appearances are a definite sense of being an individual in a world where there seems to be objects that are just bouncing up against each other. All this plurality and diversity, but then coming back to our source and seeing the unity of it. Now, that's only an apparent pilgrimage, because we really didn't go anywhere. That divine source is changeless. It appears to change, but it is not changing. It is unchanging. There's this veil and we identify within the veil rather than with pure consciousness, and so it's like a game of hide and seek. We think we're going somewhere. We think we're separate. We're really not, and so we're in reunion. So then that reunion gives us the idea that we're interdependent. That we are not separate, but we are united, and we are interdependent. And when you take that idea further and further, your happiness is my happiness. Doing good to you, I'm doing good to myself. So there comes this idea of social responsibility. So from coming out of the avidya, the ignorance, into the knowledge, the unity, the non-separateness, the oneness, the one self, then we realize that we are all interdependent, and we have this ethical responsibility. It is expressed through the moral law, the Dharma. And I didn't pause very long on that slide, but in Mahayana Buddhism, they have the idea that it's selfish to liberate yourself. That you have to help to liberate others, and that you all move together, and it's a group thing rather than an individualistic thing. So perhaps that fits in a deeper study with the different rounds, is the different races and of humanity, and the different nations all playing their part in the drama with various layers of veiling of the oneness. So the idea is that each one of us has this divine nature. In the human situation, we can cultivate our Buddha nature. We can use that to discern between what is real and what is unreal. And we can follow the real, seeking the truth, finding the truth makes us free. So then beyond the Buddha nature is the Jivan Mukta, the free soul. The Atman comes into this condition of ignorance and confusion and a cosmic appearance, pure consciousness, really, all-pervading pure consciousness, existence absolute, Brahman or Paratma is sometimes described, but well, I lost my train of thought as I started translating the the Sanskrit. Maybe I got lost in the idea of the oneness which shines. It's this projecting power and the principle of alternation, this seemingly play of opposites. It's really two in one. It's just veiling and revealing a hide and seek game. And we realize the divinity of our own soul. So then namaskar, I can recognize the divinity of the soul within you and recognize that that's the same. Drops waves on the ocean. And so not different at all. Both have our real existence as the ocean. So overcoming the ignorance and confusion of duality, separation, coming into the idea of unity with the absolute, that absolute manifesting through everyone. So there's the idea of reincarnation, where learning and we're gaining that knowledge through from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. So then they say, well, how does this work? Well, there are some who say that you get one chance here in the moral gymnasium, and if you get it wrong, either you're just it's just nihilistic materialism. You're food for worms. That's it. Your consciousness was a mistake of chemistry. We don't start from that point of view. We start from the point of view of consciousness as primary. So the consciousness carries on. So the individual, the Atman, Jiva, the bound soul, dies, and if you get it right once, you either go to a blessed place or you go to a place and you burn forever. Well, that seems kind of unfair. Then there's the idea of you've got multiple chances, and you go and reflect upon your experience, and then you come back to the moral gymnasium, and you learn across many, many, many different lifetimes. And the end of knowledge, you find the truth, you realize your absolute unity with that you were never separate from. And that is the fourth idea, which is there really aren't any individual souls. There's just one consciousness that is everybody who ever lived, everybody that's living now, and everyone who will ever live, and there's nobody else here. That's a very advanced kind of of state to achieve, and perhaps not an appropriate goal for most people because it's so high to reach that state. If they don't do that under the right conditions, the right circumstances, the right guidance, they could injure themselves having that perspective. So the consciousness is primary. And then we have this Maya, this personal ignorance and confusion, samasti, and we have vyasti, the cosmic appearance, samsara, this cycle. It seems like it's changing. It's really a cycle of perpetual renewal. It's not really changing. That pure consciousness stays the same and comes into being so many different forms, passes through so many different forms, and eventually, instead of identifying with all the modifications and appearances of the prakriti, the reflection, seeing itself in reflection, sees itself directly, knowing yourself directly. And so each one of us it's happening on the microcosm, it's happening at the macrocosm. I hope that I haven't gone too far off into the, there's a lot of technicalities when you start to talk about the Sankhya and all of that. But
Patrick, what about? I've got another question, if you would. What do you think about the triangle, I guess, or the threefold priorities of philosophy, science, and poetry? Is that like a three-legged stool that you need all three in order for it to be a platform? Or are they just multipliers of one another? What do you think about those three?
Swami Vivekananda said that the goal is to realize the divinity of the soul, and he gave different ways of doing that, the different 4 yogas that he gave. And he said by one or more or all of them, be free. And so each, now that we are in this infinitude of diversity, and each one of us is on our own personal pilgrimage, we all have our unique experiences, our own inclinations, our own tendencies from this life, from past lives, these samskaras and vasanas, as Patanjali describes them, and that there's no one size fits all. Swami Vivekananda would talk about how he wanted there to be a proliferation and multiplication of religions, and that until everyone had their own religion, the unique method and interpretation that works for them. It's wonderful that there are so many ways that have been shown, and different ways that we can experiment and find what works best for us.
I have a hand up.
Yes, I see. Is it?
Yes. Hi. Yes. Good afternoon and hello to everybody. And thank you so much. A very inspiring and very educational talk. I was thinking that what is going to take for us as humanity, and especially us who are involved in different, I would say, groups, to unite. Because I think that was the purpose of the Parliament of Religion at the beginning, right? I noticed that they have author and they have other different groups that they are not exactly how it started. And I know, the William King Josh and Annie Besant was part of the co-founding of this. And I don't think there's much participation of theosophical groups in there, I believe, at this point. But I was trying to find out what is going to take to unite us all as group. because sometimes there is the tendency of us to look for the point of disappointment, or point that we don't have in common, rather than we have a lot in common, all of us. But what is going to take for us to do that? I mean, we are in a point in life right now very pivotal, and HPV talks about by the end of the 21st century, we're going to win as far as compassion and all these wonderful thoughts supposed to come together as reincarnated now as a truth, living truth.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were finished, so I was giving a moment. You might sometimes have to pause to gather your thoughts. I understand. It's interesting because it depends on from what point of view that we're looking at things. It would be possible to look at us right now and say, well, we are united. I mean, we might be united in ignorance and confusion, all those share that in common, but now look, we're all united in that. And so it's already a practical fact. We're already united. And truly, from the more metaphysical point of view, the ultimate reality already has us united. It's our own ignorance and confusion that thinks we're separate. And now then there's the social question. There still is, even when the clarion call to end the sectarian bigotry and the violent fanaticism and the irreligion was made in 1893. Still, look what we've seen in 130 years. Look at the situation that is happening right now in the so-called Holy Land, where it doesn't seem like it's so holy, where everything is being blown up and people are killing each other, and there's a great moral dilemma that's happening there. And within the interfaith movement, there are people who feel completely despondent, like all of our efforts at peace building, all of our efforts at dialogue have failed. Look at what's happening. But it's not. It's because we're earning merit through our efforts, regardless of what the effects are in the world. It's at the level of the intention of our hearts, and we will prevail because humanity's extremity is God's opportunity. And in this, out of these great cataclysms and all of this chaos and all of these many troubles, it's the movement of the moral law of the universe. We're not abandoned. We're not forsaken. How are we seeing this situation? It's a matter of interpretation. For the way I look at it, and some people find this a great difficulty to look at it this way, is that how could there be a redemption of the wasteland unless you're first in a wasteland condition? There's a necessity in the rise and fall of things. There's a rise, there will be a fall. And that fall will be, there will be another rise. And this is a given in theosophy, the law of karma, the rise and fall. So here we are in a situation where seemingly many troubles, seemingly great catastrophe, yet people are coming together. The Parliament of World's Religions is a great example of that, of people coming together and expressing the aspiration for their ideal. And there are peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. And we are in a situation where this is an opportunity to express our faith, to not lose hope, to cheerfully endure, to take social responsibility, to do what we can where we are not, you can't necessarily throw on a cape and fly over to the Middle East and calm everybody down. But there's some way in your own life that you can create peace, create joy. It's really just a matter of purifying our own heart, clarifying our own vision, and then what's already there shines through. And what's there is fundamentally, it's consciousness, it's intelligent, it's bliss. And in this pilgrimage, we're learning through experience, through the rise and fall, that we were never forsaken, that we're not abandoned. Even if we die in catastrophe, what's the end of that? We see on the other side. My ignorance and confusion is gone. So, from the point of view of poetry, here we are in this unique moment where we're all called to responsibility. And we can all in some way contribute to the peace and to express our aspirations for that and create it. If we do it like karma yoga, where everything we're doing is reverence, everything that we're doing is just a way of worshiping God, regardless of what the results are, then since we put God first, then we've accumulated merit, and whatever happens in the world was always God's doing anyway, not mine. And so we each have to follow the Dharma and follow our Swadharma, your unique condition in life, your unique personality, the power that you have, your position, based on your inclinations and tendencies. You do what you can to transform your vision to purify your heart so that you can be for your personal liberation and for the welfare of the world. And pray. I know that some people think that prayer has no power, but it does.
Mm-hmm. I think we have time for one more question.
Or comments or challenges. I like it.
I have one question about the relationship between the extant teachings, because you learn most through silence and within yourself. But when people make base arguments and they use that as a justification for violence, for example, if you hold them to a wider, like a fuller, more complete worldview or mental framework, and it seems like that would put them in check or put violence in check to a certain extent. Would you mind commenting on the relationship between continuing on traditions and keeping teachings alive and putting certain base behavior in check?
Yes, if yoga is control of the activities of the mind, yoga chitta vritti nirodha, the fundamental teaching of Patanjali, he gives a method for that, and the method begins with the moral and the ethical trainings of the yamas and the niyamas, and among those is nonviolence, ahimsa, nonviolence in thought, word, and deed. We're trying to control our animal natures, our uncontrolled our uncontrolled desire, our immoderate appetites, which cause us to be in conflict and to be vicious in those ways. Now, Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra also says that there are some people who are not fit to practice yoga, that they have disturbed minds. So there are those that are mentally ill. And in our world, we have some trouble that there are psychopaths who have missiles. So this idea of our interdependence if there's one person that's suffering, the suffering of one is the suffering of all. There are ethical standards. There is dharma. There is reason for people to assert those ethical standards and to pray for the divine intervention. So and the bending of the universe to human happiness, because atrocities are intolerable. And sometimes I've heard it this past couple of weeks, the justification of slaughter by saying, well, my religion says that it says that I can. This is fanatical thinking, which is a disease of the mind, and hopefully social pressure, peer pressure, but also being as wise as a serpent and as innocent as a dove also helps. Finding ways to not enable psychopaths to have missiles. That would be a good, a good activity for, some great soul to, and some group of great souls to attempt something like that. Because really, when we come to the golden rule, right, what do all of these religions share in common? Do unto others as you would have done unto you. That is a key teaching. And in a situation like, I love all religions. I study all the different religions, and I see that sometimes they're used to in ways that the Theosophical Society wished to prevent that in the future. Vedanta Society, Swami Vivekananda, his call was for an end to all the sectarian bigotry and the violence in their religion. And here we are. And so we still have to raise our voice and do what we can in different ways. Social responsibility, the golden rule. Jesus, one of the things that has been on my mind a lot over the past couple of weeks is that Jesus said, love your enemies and do good to people who hate you. I've been thinking about that a lot. That is a very advanced teaching. Love your enemies and do good to people who hate you. Why? What would be the theological or philosophical or moral idea behind that? And ultimately, it's because we are one. We are one in spirit. We are one global family, and my happiness is contingent on their happiness. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. So love your enemies and do good to people who hate you. That has really been on my mind a lot. And so as we preserve and practice and transmit these traditions, we have to say those things, and we have to be as organized as the people who are saying very ugly, dehumanizing, horrible things, interpreting things in a way that are missing the mark. And recognize also behind a lot of those situations is a superficial justification, and that usually there's a deeper conflict, usually related to resources, territory, basic stuff. And they stir people up through fanatical language, science being one of the things that is compatible with Vedanta and with the Theosophical Society. When we look at neuroscience, the brain is adapted for its survival to focus on things that are shocking, disturbing, for our own preservation. So it's like the reptilian brainstem is scanning the environment for threats. And we will see it takes five good things to counter every one bad thing that we see out there. So we have to be sunshine in dark places. I don't know if that addressed what you were asking me about, but I tried.
Yeah, that was great. It was right along the lines of what I was asking. It's just, because there have been, for example, in Christianity, there are 4 levels of interpretation that they got from Judaism. And very few people seem to know about that. And there's this big emphasis on taking things literally. And they don't know about the anagogical or the allegorical.
Right. Yeah. The moral philosophy is veiled in allegory. And it is very necessary to bring forward the lessons and the wisdom. And so preach the gospel and sometimes use words.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of words, your words have been very timely, I would say, Patrick. It's funny or interesting or auspicious how these things work out. I just think that your kind voice and your brilliant presentation is precisely what the world needs right now. And theosophically, at least from how I understand it, there's the idea that that space is alive, and that these ideas transmit through space all around the planet, and that these ideas that you have brought forth about unity and purpose, and the message of Swami Vivekananda, so forth, and the Theosophical Society and the ULT and so forth, it does make a difference, and it is a foundation for like a whole civilization for the future, probably. And so I'm just really thankful for you doing this, and I hope you'll come again and present again on something. So thank you very, very much for this presentation and all the thought and all the heart. Speaking of the heart, with reference to neuroscience, there is the idea that you have the 3 aspects of the brain, right? And then the prefrontal cortex is like a 4th center. Some people think of it that way, but other people thinking, especially the people in the HeartMath Institute, which is not too far from where you live. Those people, I think they're in what's the name of that town? Boulder. Okay, I can't remember, but it's someplace out on the west. Boulder Creek. Yeah, the HeartMath people. They talk about the abundance of neurons in the heart, and that there's an intelligence to the heart in that way. And your presentation really brings that to light and helps that come forward. So thank you very much, Patrick, for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad that people found it informative and inspiring. I found it personally enriching, and it's a good exercise for me to do something like this. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, and perhaps I'll come again and we'll talk bhakti.
Okay. Yeah, and poetry. Yes. So. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Our next presentation next week will be The Eternal Religion, and that's based on a document that Joe Miller will tell us about. It was a document that was found in a temple in South India, and there are like 500 or 600 axioms, one of which says something like the eternal religion is ever fresh and ever new. So it has all these paradoxes and mystical statements in there, which we'll just kind of contemplate and go over next week. And then the week after, if I'm not mistaken, there will be a presentation on the razor's edge, an Upanishadic theme, which helps us, keeps us on our toes, so to speak. So thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Everybody be well and safe.
Take care.
Take care.
Everybody be safe.